Hey, welcome back to the BVB podcast. My name's Jacob, joined as always by Carver, but we do have another guest, not another guest. It's one of our regular guests joining us back on the show, Jake from 50 Plus Donner, man. How are you doing? How are things in Chicagoland?
I'm good, other Jake. Freezing my butt off, but still nice. Still nice. I'm still a winter boy at heart. How about you guys?
Good.
Yeah.
We finally got our first snow here, a week ago? After seeing, I have a friend that lives in Chicago, and he's been showing me you guys have been getting snow for quite a while now. It's usually just kind of sludge over here.
Yeah, that first winter stuff. I don't know if we're going to talk about you guys with your watch party. With the flares? All right. Jacob. I've never seen someone look more hot with a flare than Jacob. He was doing the whole stance and everything. I was like, all right, okay, new profile pic.
I did. I had someone, well, it was Nate who runs Bruce STL, but he did post a photo of it was me and Carver was standing right behind me. Carver just utter joy on his face, and I looked kind of not the most thrilled, and that's because I had the flare way too close to my face, and it smelled horrible. And I was just thinking, I'm getting poisoned. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die right now. And then I see the other guy with the flare in the photo later, and he has his hand fully extended. And I was like, that's how I should have done it. But I was an idiot. It was right in my face, and it did not smell good. But
well,
the photos
looked
looked
a smolder,
awesome,
though, so it worked out in the end.
The photos and the snow, yeah, it was a good time, good watch party. How are and I know what's the Bundesliga scene in Chicago?
I think the most consistent is obviously Bayern. I feel like that's probably the case in a lot of cities. But the Dortmund group, I think is getting going. They have a better spot now than they did before. They're sharing it with the Bayern group, and it's kind of hard to always share with a crowd like Bayern. So they've got their own place. And St. Pauli has a good group. There's a Hamburg group that'll come out every now and then. There's a lot of good Zweite Bundesliga groups, but because they're on so early and really sporadic, it's kind of hard to organize around that. But it's still pretty good. But apparently Frankfurt's doing something in Chicago eventually. I think people would be surprised.
Our watch party, it's always there's only really one bar. I mean, there's a couple in St. Louis, but there's basically one bar where you go and watch, whether it's Premier League, Bundesliga, it's where all the soccer people go. Amsterdam Tavern, it's a great place. But with that, it is always very mixed. So it's the Dortmund watch party is accompanied with we don't throw them together, but we're just both there. It's there's a decent Bayern contingent. And there was the Bayern St. Louis account posted this video where they just walk through the entire watch party, but it starts with, it's me and Carver just standing there, staring at the dude. And so he walks through all the Dortmund people. I'm as far as social media goes, you probably don't want to start your video with just Dortmund guys. I don't know. I appreciate showing the atmosphere and they're all kind of friends or whatever. But it was funny. I sent it to Carver immediately. I'm like, hell yeah, look at us. It's a great video, but
and then
it's
you
because it started with us.
Obviously.
I'm curious if anyone went to a watch party with this Barcelona game, probably would have been a little more stressful. Middle of the afternoon. We are going to talk about Barcelona. Got to talk a lot to talk about coming up, so we can get into it. Before Barcelona, though, we had another road match. Dortmund on the road, away at Gladbach. And kind of same old. At least we didn't lose, but it was a draw on the road. And before we really get into this match and the lineup and everything, Jake, as a unaffiliated, neutral, definitely not we love having you on the show for that reason.
Of course.
But if people don't know, Jake's not an out and out, I'm a Dortmund supporter, not by any means, but we do appreciate you coming on the show regardless. But going into this match, and I'm curious, what were your thoughts on the weight on this match from a Gladbach perspective and Dortmund's perspective, given Dortmund, how they've been on the road, kind of really need a road win, but at the same time, Gladbach has been a little bit better form, especially at home. So kind of your take on the weight of this match for both sides.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at the table, obviously mid-table this year is a little deceptive. Normally that can be kind of an insult, they don't got it, to being competing for the top. But there's 8 teams that are seemingly mid-table, all separated by a point or something like that. So really any of those type of teams in the middle, you don't really want to play just because you don't know what you're going to get. I think you normally get that with Bundesliga. Particularly this team, Gladbach, has just so much talent. have Kevin Stoger, who's coming off the bench, but he's still insanely talented. Tim Kleindienst, I mean, he's on the national team for a reason. You have Marco Reitz and Frank Honorat. Like, you have a bunch of players that are really good. It's actually surprising that they're not doing better. We call them on 50 Plus Donor the kind of like measuring stick team, because that's really where you see kind of like what your team is about to get out of matches. So I knew this was going to be a tough one. We can talk later about my reaction after it, but I knew this was going to be a really tough game, especially with it being on the road, and they're not a fun team to play. So it was really a hard game for Dortmund just going into it.
Yeah, and at a time where it seems like Dortmund's kind of on an upward trajectory. I know we drew Bayern, but that's still a decent result. And we had the time after the international break, after the really disappointing loss to Mainz, but we come back with a big win. And then going into this, we draw Bayern, obviously. And then going into this one, we're like, okay, it's about time. This is where we really need to finally get a road win.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so just a lot going into it in that sense, especially now. It's like we can't say, feel like I kept saying forever, it's like, oh, we're still kind of early in the season. And now we're officially, it's not early in the season anymore. Right. Like, things are still really tight, which is, you can kind of look at it in a good way and a bad way. Like, mid-table, top four, like, we're still close. Like, it feels like all hope is lost there, but realistically, like, the points are still there, but we actually need to start performing on the road, or we're just going to keep slipping. And the points is going to start spreading.
And even real quick, like, the people at top four, I'm not entirely convinced are not going to slip a little bit too, right? Like, you have Frankfurt, who all of a sudden are just not looking very good, right? So I don't even think you can count out top four right now either. So
yeah, Carver, anything to add like on this before we really get into it with the lineup and everything?
Yeah, 3 points separate between 5th and 11th place. But then you look at the top of the table, and Dortmund are 12 points behind Bayern. So we've said for the last few weeks now that the title is pretty much wrapped at this point for us, of course. Frankfurt, that's a good shout. That could be dropping some points here in the next few months, depending on how they end this first half of the season and start the second half. Leverkusen, too, they've been picking up some form, but they haven't been as convincing. But still, either way, I've said this before, we need to focus on us. This is a big opportunity for us to get the first road win in the Bundesliga this season, a chance to widen the gap between us and Gladbach and just some other teams that are in that realm, and try to secure a spot into the top four until we could start looking at maybe bigger aspirations there. And there's also just lots of goals in this fixture too. I mean, it's usually, it's not uncommon to see like a 3-2, 4-1, something like that, 4 and 5 goals a game. But unfortunately, you didn't really see either of those two happen. Dortmund did have a somewhat decent game, but for the most part, it was pretty underwhelming in a situation that you really just have to have a win coming back home.
Yeah, so getting into the lineup, this is another match where, I mean, the injury list is longer now than it was going into this match. And granted, we had a few, what we would say like starters. Anton is questionable. That's a fighting spot there, but we seem relatively healthier, I guess, in some sense going into this, with the exception of Brandt being out, which is a big one, I'd say. Anton, and then Adeyemi, we haven't seen him in a while. Anyways, we've kind of been coping with that. But yeah, lineup, besides that, kind of what you expect. Kobel in goal, Benzabaini, left back, Schlotterbeck and Sula getting the start in center backs, Rierson on the right. Mecha and Gross are two double pivots, with Sabitzer in that number 10 role, with Gittens and Bayer playing out wide on the wings, and Girassi up top. Kind of what we've been seeing, kind of what you expect with the injuries.
It's the best available starting 11. Brandt was originally reported to be in the squad for this one, but had a setback, and you saw him you did not see him in neither of these fixtures, whether it was at Gladbach or Barcelona. So maybe you could argue now that Gio should be ahead of Sabitzer in that number 10 spot after these last two games, but either way, nothing really to complain about here. It's the best that we have at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, outside of that, with all the injuries you have, and like now the even more injuries you have, like, it's just the best you can possibly get. And I don't think it's a bad roster at all. So there's that. But yeah, I mean, I feel like it's always like at this point of the Dortmund season where you're just like, man, who is on the bench right now? Like, why do we have half of our team missing? Like, I don't know why that's just a consistent problem with Dortmund. Like, there really does need to be some questions.
We've talked about it all season long, and like even like starting the season, it's like we have 3 first team center backs, we have 3 first team fullbacks. Like, we're just short in positions. Like we were in the same situation last year too with center backs. The benefit, or the lucky thing is Mats Hummels played every single game and stayed healthy for the most part. And so did Schlotterbeck and Sula too. Like that, we didn't really have an issue because no one went down. Now we're seeing everybody go down. Fast forward to the Barcelona game, like all the center backs are out potentially. And that's just the issue. It's like we've started the year. The names in the squad look decent, but we don't have enough. Like we just don't have enough bodies. And that's where now I think we've talked about it a bit, but it's like the same, because of injuries, the same guys are just playing over and over and over and every 3 days. And now you're just running them into the ground to where we're seeing more injuries because the guys, we don't have the squad or the depth to actually rotate, which makes it even harder when we go on the road and we really need a win. It's a struggle.
And then that just creates more injuries, and it's just a cycle.
Again, especially in a physical game like this, like there were a lot of challenges early on. Both teams, albeit this game was cagey for like the first half hour or so, and you're waiting for the first goal to actually open things up. But both teams, again, they were really going in for their challenges. There was some high pressing here and there. I know Dortmund did some high pressing early on, and it resulted in a good chance. Sabitzer, again, kind of missing a big opportunity. I don't even think he got this one on target there. Gittens makes a great run. Good cross, dummy from Guirassy, and then, Sabitzer just doesn't really get the shot on target, unfortunately. I think the XG, whenever he did shoot, was like 0.22 or something like that. So he had a pretty decent chance. And after that play, you started to see Gladbach starting to double up on Gittens. It was Honorat and Scally too. And Gittens really had to fight his way into this game. I mean, you usually see him, or the team will, shift over to certain sides and try to get him into 1v1 situations. But this game, it was tough for that whenever Gladbach kind of did their homework and tried to shut him down. And eventually he didn't. Gittens had a lot of good work off the ball and using his physicality to fight his way into the game. And that's exactly what he did with the goal here in the second half.
Yeah, first half, I mean, getting into this game, it was a game I like really enjoyed watching. I think it was because it was physical, and I saw so much effort, especially from Gittens. Like that was cool to see, like him. Like obviously he's a young player. He's been flying, and it was good to see him even step up in this challenge, right? Where like they know he's been our only threat all season, pretty much. Like we know Guirassy is scoring, but he's the guy who's causing so much havoc, and obviously they recognize that. They do something about it, and to see him kind of step up to another level and like accept the challenge and still excel. But even like getting to before the goal, like this was a game I really enjoyed watching. No, first half, I think we only had one shot on target, but still creating some chances. And because it was kind of gritty this whole time, like I really enjoyed that. And with that, even at halftime, like I was feeling pretty confident. I was like, because like we kind of had to fight through this first half and show some grit, and we hadn't gone down yet. So I'm like, cool, if we can just keep pushing, like I think this game is ours. And then as you mentioned, we see Gittens just do his freaking Gittens thing and just continue to destroy oppositions with that right boot cutting inside.
Gittens, man, like, oh my goodness, what a revelation that has been. He's one of those players where he just plays like 8 years older than he actually is. I mean, yeah, he has his inconsistent moments, like, I feel like any young player would, but like he is just like you said, putting on another level. Like anytime he has the ball, I feel like something magical is going to happen, or at least a shot on target, which, it's neither here nor there, but he's just so good at like setting up people, and like in setting up people, they have to respect the people around him, which makes him available to shoot, which he's also good at. So it's just when you see him with the ball, like he's one of those things where if I was a defender, I'd be like, why am I getting paid to do this? Like, he's going to get, if he continues this, he's going to get whenever that next step, whether it's contract extension or somewhere else, he's going to get.
Yeah, his shooting has really emerged itself as like a major asset and part of his game here in the last like season or so. And you're definitely seeing it more and more this game with so many goal contributions. And this game was no different. Of course, he could argue that he did not, or had like one of the worst games in a Dortmund kit at this Barcelona game, but you really have to take a good hard look at this game against Gladbach whenever he is doubled up on. He is playing in a tough game on the road, and he still manages to find space to score here. And in that same goal, he was getting doubled up on. Hell, even at times in this game, he was getting tripled up on, and he still was able to get on the score sheet. And that's no easy task.
Yeah, we do see him get the goal to open things up, as you mentioned, in the 65th minute. And I feel like this second half, because of how physical and such a battle the first half was, like we see things open up a bit more in the second half. We get the goal, and then unfortunately, not long after that, 71st minute penalty to Gladbach, which is just, it's just sad. It's just once that went in, like that's where I was like, I had a lot of hope. And I'm like, cool, we're actually going to get a road win. And then very soon turns around, gives a penalty. And then I'm like, oh, nope, it's happening again.
I was actually going to say what I really liked about Dortmund in both of these last two games is like we continued to go for it. Sometimes we can settle for a draw. I mean, you could argue that against this Barcelona game, they definitely could have settled for a draw there, but in both fixtures, you saw Dortmund really push to the end here. And of course, again, it wasn't the most beautiful play against Gladbach or anything like that, but even after that penalty where we were trying to still push for a win. But yeah, it wasn't the best of play, so we didn't create many chances that game against Gladbach. And yeah, unfortunate penalty to concede. And I know also too, like against, there was a handful of corners where, you know, you're looking at the matchups between Gross and Kleindienst. And, you know, after the first time I was like, okay, that should not happen again. I feel like maybe there was a miscommunication, but then you saw that happen time and time again in every corner of this game. And it's like, this was clearly a strategy from the coaching staff. And I really was, I don't know, I was pretty dumbfounded of how they came to the conclusion to put those two together, because you know, literally the most dangerous player of the team, and then a 33-year-old center midfielder who is the exact opposite of size, right? And Dortmund definitely has some size in their team at the moment, especially in their back line. So yeah, I was sitting there scratching my head at a moment like that, because you feel like that could have costed us as well.
With this Gladbach match, though, while it was like, it's disappointing, I think it was a good road draw. Like, if you take out the context of what else has been happening on the road for Dortmund in the league, like, because Gladbach has been good at home. It was a hard fought match. We took the lead. Yeah, we gave up the penalty and they were able to draw it, but to not give up, as you said, just be able to fight through the rest of the match and continue to push and try. Like, I'd say it was a good road result. It's just unfortunate because like we really need 3 points on the road and we don't have it yet. Like, I wish we would have had a few more, or two. Like, give me 2 road wins before this, and I'm happy with this being a draw. It's just the timing of it and the circumstances of this season. It's really unfortunate, but I do think it was a good, hard fought point on the road. It's just we need way more than that at this point.
Yeah, I think you also took the words exactly out of my mouth for this game. I feel like if this was just like one of those mid-table slip-ups, like I don't think anyone would bat an eye. But in the context of like being in the rush of mid-table right now and not having an away win, and like the vibes are off with the coach and like all of that, I think like that kind of makes it seem worse. But I don't think it was a bad game, really, honestly. And I thought that would take a lot of momentum into the Barcelona game, which I guess we can argue if it did or not. But I still thought, like, I came away from that and I saw like everyone's reactions of like, oh man, we suck again. I was like, I don't think that was really the game that that would make me say that. But okay, all right.
No, I'd agree with that. Like, I enjoyed this match, and again, good road point outside of the context of where we're at in the league right now.
And two, Shaheen mentioned in some post-game comments that even though he is hearing that we've been having better performances, he's recognizing that this isn't enough. And I think that should be the standard from the coach. You know, like at the end of the day, you're still needing results. And of course, yeah, I guess you could argue some of these performances, maybe not the Gladbach game, but in general, we are on a bit of a trajectory. You still need to steal those 3 points and those opportunities. And this was a time to do it. And unfortunately, we kind of failed to meet that standard again.
Well, let's get into Barcelona, because we obviously couldn't talk about that Gladbach game or anything else without alluding to Barcelona a bit, because I mean, just everything that has happened with the injuries and no center backs and everything, it all leads into this, and it's just hard to talk about. It's hard to retroactively talk about a game when another game happened in the middle of it. So let's just get into Barcelona. Going into this match, I mean, to the top, I think I could be wrong, but I feel like Dortmund was top 4 in Champions League at the moment. So 2 top 4 Bundesliga teams going at it, which it's already a big occasion. I mean, these teams have some history anyways.
Did you say 2 Bundesliga teams?
Guys, I don't know. 2 Champions League games. You know what, though? This was the most like German Barcelona team we could face.
Right, that's fair.
That is
with
true. Yeah,
Hansi
you're not wrong.
Flick. We get Lewandowski back at Westfalenstadion leading the line. We get Danny Olmo in the midfield, which I was trying to think because of his injury record at Leipzig. I don't know how many times we actually faced Danny Olmo at Leipzig, but
He did score a banger against us recently when he was at Leipzig.
But it was a very, very German team kind of that we were facing in this Barcelona squad. And I mean, you see it in their pressing is unreal. And I mean, the quality and skill on the ball is unreal, but 2 top 4 Champions League teams going at it. I do like, even though things are falling apart, things feel like we're falling apart from a Dortmund perspective. Jake, that's why you're here to humble us and be like, yo, chill. Things could be way, way worse.
Oh, that's what the Venmo payment was for. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
No, things have been pretty decent in the Champions League, which is great. And this was a really exciting clash. And although going into it, I was a little scared. And honestly, I didn't know if we'd be able to keep our home winning streak going at the Westfalenstadion. I was like, of course, the end result is I'm not happy with the end result, right? But I think throughout the match, I was like, this is going a little better than I thought it might. And it was a very entertaining match by all means. Yeah, big occasion. And I don't think there's obviously some things to be upset about, but I'm happy with kind of how just the effort that the team gave. I think we could have been a little better in some instances for sure. But let's get into it with the lineup. And again, injuries. The only one adding into this is Sula, was added to the injury list already of Brandt, Bayer, and Anton. And then was Adi? I didn't even realize Adeyemi. Was he actually on the bench?
Squad, but he never featured at all.
Okay, and then so getting in the lineup, actually a lot different than what we have been seeing, which looking back at the match, like seeing some of these guys start, I really liked it. And also just playing in the match too, it's like I wouldn't say we're definitely not our best squad, especially given the injuries, but I do appreciate that. I appreciate some of these guys getting minutes finally. They're guys who desperately need minutes, and it's great to give them these on a big occasion too. So getting into it, Kobel in goal, we see Schlotterbeck, center back, paired up with Emre Can, making his return as captain, making his return to the lineup, which we didn't even talk about in Gladbach, but it's been a while. So, and he has to slot in because Anton and Sula are out. So that is the only option to play Can at center back. Rierson, right back, Benzabaini, left back, Sabitzer and Mecha, 2 double pivots. Reyna playing at the 10, which we love to see. Dernville getting his first Champions League start on the right, and Gittens on the left, and Girassi, the man up top.
So risky but respectable starting 11, and from Shaheen here. I mean, you could argue it's like a makeup game against Madrid with just how much he was looking to push with this lineup. But I really like to see Dernville and Reyna get a start here. Both of them are really hungry for minutes. Both of them have seen very, very little football in the last 2, even 3 years. So, I mean, both of them obviously are looking to build some form, get some match fitness. Dernville put into another high-pressure situation. His debut, whenever he first put on a Dortmund kit for the senior team, was against Mainz whenever we fumbled the league that day. And now, after so long with the setbacks since then, he is back in another high-stakes game that we are needing some points in the Champions League for. And Reyna, of course, too, his history with injuries and his lack of fitness, he hasn't had a lot of opportunity. And both of them, I think, did pretty solid in this game. Dernville, maybe not so much the second half, but he was lightning quick and very energetic, and just his ball retention was amazing that first half. And Reyna, I think, looked very solid overall throughout the majority of this game in general, with his passing and his link-up play and just his simplicity too.
Yeah, I mean, this was going to be obviously a hard game, right? Like, anytime you play Barcelona, even if you match their quality and aren't injured, it's going to be a tough fixture. And you're right, this is the best possible with all the injuries. Like, it is risky, but it really is the best, I thought, going into this match that you can do. You do want to get Dernville back in here, especially using this as like a way to kind of see what he can do now. I know I make fun of Reyna a lot. Like, it is genuinely good to see him starting again. He's so talented when he's able to consistently do some matches. And I think he had an okay performance here, but I mean, what can you expect? He hasn't really played all year. So all things considering the injuries, and you had 2 people who haven't started in forever starting, and Gittens wasn't doing very well, to only have lost by a goal is pretty nice. And it's like you said, it's against another top Champions League performer. So I think to put in that would be really encouraging. And like the next two games you guys are playing are a lot easier, which is nice. So I think even though there's that dip in the table right now, theoretically, like I don't think it's going to dip any further. But it could have been better, obviously. But I feel like you can say that about any loss, right? So I think they played the best they could do. It sucks that Gittens didn't play that well, but I do think other people kind of held the line there.
Yeah, Barcelona ended I think it was like a 3-year streak of unbeaten games in the Champions League for Dortmund. And as much as like a painful loss that is to take, with given just how hard this team fought, the worst takeaway is just easily for me is just Slaughterbeck's injury. I mean, that was like a horrific fall. I had like a little screenshot of it on my phone for a little bit before I posted it, and I was like, I'm getting a little queasy looking at this. I'm gonna go ahead and delete that off my phone after posting it. But yeah, I did want to talk a little bit about some of the Barcelona players. First with Yamal. I don't know if you paid attention much to him this game, Jake or Jacob, but he is a freak. I mean, he's 17 years old, and like the Trivela is just a normal pass for him. That pass he had early on to Rafinha, taking out 3 Dortmund players at once, was unfucking believable. I mean, the kid is, again, at 17. Of course, he's got some different qualities to Messi, but they're very comparable in this kind of sense, which is like the intelligence they have to pick out these kind of passes. And Yamal did that on more than one occasion this game as well. I mean, for 17 years old, I cannot say enough praise about him. It's insane.
Also, the amount of
straight line was 17, man.
The amount of times he would just like slow up the play, and it was funny. It was almost comical because like Koundé would be flying by him on the wing, and he would just like hold his hand up and be like, no, sorry, I missed the pass, or just be like, sorry, slow it down. It's like, as a 17-year-old, like that's crazy to have that much. I don't know. It like composure, I guess, was pretty crazy. And just hearing time and time again, he's 17. I was like, dang it. Because then I'm like, Duranville's 18. I was like, I want to have the young guy, or like Gittens is 20. I'm like, dang it. Why can't we have a 16-year-old flying? And we did see, I mean, that's when we got Duranville, right? In that Mainz game, I believe he was 16. Then just the unfortunate injuries that he had after that. It's been obviously a little slower in his development, but yeah. The dude's unreal. You saw that in all the hype in the Euros, and he's just continuing to prove it. And one of my friends at work did ask me, like, I think we were talking about more the squad building, because we're talking about Schlotterbeck getting injured, and then I told him why that's even worse with our center backs we have, and it's the same problem with fullbacks and everything. And he was just like, I just remember like Dortmund was just where's all their young guys? Like, we used to have all the young guys. I'm like, we got some of them. It's just, I don't know, like Gittens, I'd kind of still put him there. Like, I did appreciate like this young lineup. Like, I love seeing Duranville get the start. We mentioned that. Still throw him in that category, especially with the lack of time he's been getting. Gittens is obviously still in that. The problem is when you're playing Barcelona, and they also have a crap ton of young guys, and Yamal's 17 and taking over the world. It's just, you don't look at Dortmund as young guys. But at the same time, like, we saw that shift a bit under Terzic, right? And we got a little more these kind of rugged and experienced Bundesliga veterans in there, which isn't bad. Like, I think maybe we've needed that to some extent. But now we're seeing everyone get injured. Not saying I'm not putting that all on that, but yeah, it's just a kind of different phase of Dortmund right now.
Also, all your young kids were on the bench for that game. Jeez.
Yeah,
I feel like everyone on the bench was 18.
I don't count those young kids, because those are just filling. Those guys are. I've talked about it before. Those are like BVB 2 guys. Like, there are under 23s that aren't. I wouldn't say they're genuine like Dortmund prospects. They're not those like wonder kid kind of players. They're just like filling the spots on the bench, because we literally don't have a squad to fill the bench.
I think you could argue like 1 or 2 of them are like Filippo Mane, and of course
he's also injured.
Yeah. Kabar too. I think he had a stint with the U23s, but I know Shaheen has been wanting to implement more youth into the team since he's been taken over. And
I know he said that, Carver.
I know. That's what I was
said. That was his thing. He's just saying that because we don't actually have a full first team squad.
He's done that at times, but I think this is a good example of him actually, putting words into action here. And Duranville, I mean, again, first Champions League start here, 7 of his 9 duels won, 1 big chance created, 3 of his 4 dribbles completed, 1-2 fouls, and just won a lot of 1v1 duels in that first half. Again, he retained possession well, and he remained creative and confident even whenever things didn't go his way in this game too. I'd love that energy from him, and I'm hoping to see more from him if he could stay fit.
It was also nice to see the attack with him on that wing, who's, I would say, like, he's obviously got pace. He's really fast. He's got the skill on the ball too. So it brings this dynamic that maybe Barcelona wasn't quite expecting. Like, they're expecting that from Gittens' side, right down the left. And it could have been so good if we had that both ways. But I think it definitely caught them by surprise. But even when they knew, like, he kept getting the ball and he just kept running and he kept going past him. Like, obviously stopped him a couple times, but he was always a threat and he would just kind of just go for it, which I loved. Like, he never shied away, even when he got stuffed up, but like, he just kept going. And it was so nice to have that threat and kind of a surprise threat too. And then even in the second half, like, I know he subbed off, I think between the 60th and 70th minute, but we see Jan Couto sub on another injury added to the list. Rierson comes off at halftime, and his link up with Couto, who's also very pacey, kind of a double threat on that side. I mean, Couto obviously helped set up the goal. I think it was the first Dortmund goal, or the second one. The second one, because it wasn't the penalty.
Second one.
But to see them both like really dangerous on that right side was a good combo that I like too.
Yeah, have anything for that, Jaker?
No, I feel like I'm like a yes man. I agree with everything you just said, and like, yeah, I think that is a good point about, like, Dortmund usually always has some 18-year-old where, like, yeah, they're going to sell him for $1 billion, right? And, I hope Dortmund is like Dortmund, FO sounds like such a MLS thing to say, but I hope they just understand that of, like, I think the fan base has gotten used to being able to have, like, oh yeah, this 18-year-old in the system is going to be that guy, or like this 16-year-old, he might not be that guy now, but we know at 18 he's going to be. And I think that is now a fan expectation. So I hope they understand that going forward of, like, okay, we need to really see, like, Yamal out there and be like, okay, we need to kind of step this up on our end. So.
And they definitely still are planning for the future with a lot of players. And I think Bayer was another. Of course, Bayer's a handful of years older than that, but he's going to be someone that the coaching staff wholeheartedly believes in for the future too. It's unfortunate he picked up also an injury against Gladbach. But yeah, Duranville, Gittens, there's going to be a handful coming in soon too, like the ones I mentioned from the U23s. Justin Lerma too, the Ecuadorian, I think, that we signed. He was only 15 or 16. He's going to be one for the future. So yeah, there's a lot of hope. It's just a matter of, hopefully it doesn't take too long and they can, build some match fitness and confidence in the older teams without sustaining too many injuries. I know Duranville has been set back a few years for that, but.
Well, let's talk some match specifics, though. The quality in this Barcelona team was insane. And although we were kind of getting stuck in, I felt like so many times we would, like, they're great at ball recovery time, and their counter pressing is unreal, especially with the skill they have on the ball. They were just able to win it back so fast. But I even think when we were able to kind of get in there and get stuck in and win a ball back, like, we just kind of were a bit sloppy at times, even like outside of their pressing. Like, we were still sloppy and gave it away. Like, there are a handful of times, like, I'll give like Mecha credit, like, he did a good job of running through the midfield and carrying the ball on quite a few occasions, but also, like, we just had so many touch, not only from Mecha, but a few of the guys were, like, so far off their boot, like, so bad, and then we were able to recover. It's like, cool, you stole the ball once and then you had a really bad pass or like a really long touch while you're dribbling it and just instantly give it away. And then that's where, they scored on the counter. And then so many times, like, just getting caught off sides too. I know they played that high line, but it's like, we just couldn't figure it out. Like, we couldn't hold our runs for anything. And it was tough in that instance. Like, I did appreciate us getting stuck in, but at the same time, I think if we could have been a little more cleaner, a little more patient on a lot of occasions, we would have been able to work through things a little better and create a little more chances.
I think, the spaces for both of these games were there to exploit. I think the movement was pretty solid, it definitely in larger spells in these two games. But like you were saying, just like a general lack of precision, some loose passes really let ourselves down in these two games, of course, resulting in the late goal against Barcelona, but also just whenever we get into that range of the attacking third against Gladbach too, there was some great moments for us to attack and be right in front of goal, but just like a misplaced pass or a loose pass would kill that momentum completely. So that is something that I know the coaching staff is going to be noticing and did notice. And hopefully it's something that, players can correct. Of course, there are just times where you're just not going to be on your day. Hopefully it's not like, collective thing consistently, but yeah, that's something that definitely needs to be cleaned up. But it's just hard whenever you are constantly picking at the starting 11, especially now going forward with like an essentially completely missing back line, right? I mean, Rierson had to come off at halftime in this game. Schlotterbeck picked up the horrific injury. I didn't want to say, of course, if anyone hasn't heard already, there was no fracture and there was no ligament tear, but just like a ligament injury. So Dortmund are contemplating if he's going to be even back this calendar year, which is insane. Like, I was writing off Schlotterbeck for pretty much the whole season, honestly. I was like, if he's back before like preseason, I'll be happy. But now we're looking at potentially like 6 to 8 weeks or something. That's really, really some fantastic news coming out of, this game whenever you saw the initial images of Schlotterbeck's injury.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe that either, actually. I'm learning about that just now. That was a horror injury. But I think my point that I want to do is I was going to bring off the offsides. Dortmund was offside 6 times. Barcelona was offside 0. I don't know how that's possible considering their attack, but that's what they did. And then, of course, like, shots on target, like, only having 2 out of that game, like, it's kind of expected because they had so much of the possession. And like you're saying, they were really sloppy in the attack. But, I mean, if they could have just, it sounds so simple, if they could have just shot a little better. But I think, like you're saying, like, I think that build-up was missing. We were talking about Jamie Gittens in the Gladbach game of how he just opened up so many shots. Like, that aspect from him and others were missing in that game. So I think this was a good learning lesson of, like, just being able to be on the same page on an attack, like, not rush anything and just not get caught up in the fact that, like, I think sometimes when you're playing Barcelona, you're like, okay, they have the ball, this is it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, close your eyes and hope something good happens, but just playing more confident in that aspect, like not getting riled up and sucked into what your opponent wants you to do. So
yeah, I think you definitely saw better passes whenever Gross came on in this Barcelona game. Of course, everyone knows that he brings a lot of composure on the ball, so he was connecting those passes a little bit better and just finding pockets of space for Guirassy to float into, or whoever to float into, to get themselves in a good position. And I think Reina did a good job of that as well. I think in Guirassy, this game did miss a few chances despite scoring 2 goals. There was like a wide open header that he missed and that should have been on target. Schlotterbeck too, right as he was coming down in that injury, he also had a header that, you could argue at least get a little bit closer, hopefully on target as well, and then someone could be there for the rebound. So there's some chances in this game that there were some really good opportunities to score, but the shot was just never on target.
I mean, he probably had a couple, but I definitely remember a Guirassy header like from a Reina cross, which was excellent, but again, offsides. And like that was a really good chance, but again, was the offsides thing. And I do like so many of those offsides were so tight. I think what was frustrating to me was seeing how tight the first Rafinha goal was. And I'm like, I know they showed the VAR angle and the detection or the auto offsides thing because it was a goal, right? And we didn't really see that with the other ones. But I'm like, can you just show me some of those other Dortmund chances though? Because I don't know, some of them were pretty damn close, and I feel like it maybe was that close too. It was insane. But yeah, even on the one where we win the penalty, my first thought was because Guirassy was in front of that player, I did not look how close he was with anyone else on the back line. I'm like, no, he's offsides. He's offsides probably. Like he's definitely going to be offsides. But we do see him, of course, bury the pin. Barcelona is able to get another goal, take the lead after that. But I did want to shouted him out a little bit earlier. But Jan Couto creating this second goal for Dortmund to tie it up again. Just kind of fighting through and getting that nice through ball. And then we see Gross. I mean, you mentioned him, but Gross coming in really changed this game and I think brought a lot of composure that we needed. And he was excellent. And I think you could argue going into this match, like maybe why didn't we see Sabitzer at the 10 again and Gross with Mecha in there? I think maybe with Reina, you want to see maybe get a little more pace or maybe you just need to rest Gross, which is also a very logical thing. Or you could also argue Sabitzer's was what we talked a lot about last week is Sabitzer maybe playing out of position a little bit at the 10, like him a little bit deeper. And again, I don't think there's anything in that midfield that I disliked in the first half necessarily, but it was definitely a benefit having Gross come in. Took a lot more control. And then we see him getting that ball from Couto and the composure and the quickness to really, I don't know why the Barcelona keeper came out. I don't think he necessarily needed to do that, but benefit to us, and he's able to scoop it out to Garrissey, who buries it to level it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more Couto here going forward because personally, I know from these are just reports, but looks like the club is pretty much ready to lock down a permanent deal with him in the summer because he's just on loan right now, and that fee is going to be upwards of at least like 20, 25 million, maybe even higher than that. And I personally have not seen really a justification for those price tags yet. Of course, I'm not seeing him in training. I'm not seeing behind the scenes, so he could be producing a lot more and just not getting a lot of opportunities. But I'm just happy he was able to integrate himself here in this team and this game because, with just so many injuries, he's really going to now need to step up and hopefully provide on both sides of the ball too, because he's a little man. I mean, he's close to like Moray size, if not even smaller.
Yeah, and we haven't seen him almost just get the chance. And I still love Rierson. I'd say he's my preferred starting right back. He gives us so much. And then Benzabaini has been performing well too. I mentioned the lack of fullbacks. We've been mentioning it all season, but we have three fullbacks, three first team fullbacks. It's Benzabaini on the left, Rierson on the right, Jan Couto also on the right. Say Rierson is our backup left back. So if Benzabaini is performing, then Rierson's going to stay on the right. Of course, he goes out. I don't know the extent of his, he went to the hospital due to some circulatory. I don't even know what that means. Is it a blood flow thing? It sounds really scary. I don't know. But it looks like we could be seeing Couto more because of that. And there was a mention in this match too, pretty early on, but it was about Benzabaini. And I will say, I'm not harping on Benzabaini. I think this is a point I've hit before. He has stepped up and performed really well this season, better than what I expected, and I'm very happy about that. I just wish he had competition. I wish we had another left back to push him and fight for that spot, or just be some depth. I wish we still had Tom Rota. And in the broadcast, they made a point where in an interview, he's like, yeah, I've been working really hard. And they're like, and he's been performing well and really locked in that starting position. It's like, no, he didn't lock it in. He is just our only left back. You can't give him credit for locking in a position. Thank God he's been performing. We just don't have any other left backs. It's crazy.
We cannot take too much credit away from Benzabaini these past few weeks, though.
No, and that's he has been performing.
Yeah.
He's been great. But we still need another left back.
Yeah. He's going to be playing center back at the weekend. At least what I'm guessing, we have literally zero natural center backs. Benzabaini has played as a center back before. I feel like it's going to be him and Chan. We're looking at another nightmarish back four here, or back three, whatever Shaheen's going to be presenting this weekend. But either way, I'm scared.
So my question, you guys, then, because I saw the reports that Dortmund was like, yeah, we might chill in this winter transfer window. Do you think that changes now?
Yeah, the reports have been contradicting. I mean, I think it's just, from what I've been seeing, it's the board looked pretty satisfied, which the delusion there, if that is actually true, is pretty amazing. But I feel like also, from what I've seen, that people the club is not ruling out moves if we get money from Malin. So who knows?
I feel like you have to. And what I don't like is their reasoning might just be because the injury crisis, which granted we have had a ton of injuries, but we're already so short. It's you need more people in here. I say it time and time again, we just need the bodies. We need players. We just don't have the amount of players we need. And so if they do spend, I think it is because the injury crisis. But I think we need players regardless of that anyways. And I really hope they bring some people in, especially now with the center back situation. Obviously, if their hopes are high, fingers crossed that Schlotterbeck, maybe we have 2 more Bundesliga matches before the winter break and maybe he can come back. But at the same time, in that window, how much can he actually train is a big question mark. What does that recovery time look like? I think it looks like Anton might be on his way back, but at the same time, when you're just rushing these guys back, these guys are playing so many minutes, it's just going to keep happening. We need to be able to rotate more, and we need people for that. And I do understand they did a big overhaul in the summer. We got a lot of good players and we signed a lot of people, and I understand that costs money, and they might not feel like they have more money to spend, but you brought a lot in. We still need more. And you look at you let Mats Hummels go. You freaking let Mats Hummels go.
I know. I feel like they are probably taking their time with Anton because he was reportedly it looked like he was just about to make the squad for these last 2 games, but just didn't really cut it. So they probably are taking their time with him, and maybe he does feature before the break. But I'm guessing if the club does make a move here and that back line is going to be for a loan, you have 3 center backs on this team who are paid like starters, and I don't think they're going to be spending that much money on someone and giving them a contract just for them to slip back out into a bench spot or whatever role that they have for him in like 2 or 3 months' time, whenever hopefully Sula and Schlotterbeck are back or Anton are back. So, yeah, I think it's going to be something temporary, if anything, but there needs to be investment in that back line regardless. Absolutely.
And you also just don't want to mess around too much this season either, right? Like, I mean, you could stick with the team that you got and like wait for these guys to come back. But I mean, you're tied on points with like 3 other teams right now outside of a European spot, right? Like, I think Dortmund finishing anything less than top 4 would be kind of disastrous, and not making anything would just be awful. So I get they want to like be a little careful. They don't want to hit the summer and be like, oh, we have all these players. What are we going to do? But like, I think it's better to hit that because you made Europa League, if that's the case, or Champions League, than to be outside of it all and be like, dang, we should have signed some players in the winter when we could have. So
yeah, that'd be 2 seasons in a row that Dortmund finish outside of the top 4. And with how important Champions League money is for this club, in order to stay in the position that it is, you need to set that standard. I get this is like a rebuilding season, or if you want to call it, with all the, overhaul in the board and all that with Shaheen, but it's also like, man, every season is a fucking rebuild season for Dortmund. I swear to God, every single season is. And the standards will continue to slip if the board is not careful. I don't want to get further into the weeds with that.
So kind of related to this topic, we had this comment in our Discord. Shout out to Attar in Washington, D.C. But he said, hey guys, I've been thinking, and I think he's kind of got a point here. Like, we are very disappointed in a lot of things, but he said, considering we're basically have a completely new club this season with coaches, transfers, leadership changes, maybe this season actually hasn't, or this season actually has been remarkably good. Like, I'm frustrated with the Bundesliga position and our away record, but in perspective, maybe growing pains could have been a lot worse with all the changes. And I think there's kind of a point there. Like, we had high hopes for Shaheen and things aren't quite there, but like, he's definitely a new coach. We have there has been a lot of change. And I think because, I don't know, I'll just pass it over to you guys. You guys' thoughts?
You're going to throw that
like, it could be way worse, right?
I mean, it could
I don't
always
know.
be way
I don't know.
worse.
I hate life, but it could be worse.
We did get knocked out of the Pokal early in the fall too, right? So, I mean, 2 of our 3 competitions that we're in are pretty much gone, definitely both domestic, unless we get on some miracle run, which is looking less and less likely with the players that we have at our disposal. Our season's pretty much a wrap at this point. So, I don't know. Slightly
I wouldn't say all that. I think my issue with that is like saying it could be worse. Like, there have been plenty of Dortmund seasons where there's been a lot of change and they weren't in 6, 7, right?
Yeah.
Like, I get it. And like, I do sort of understand that actually, of like, okay, don't blow it up all the way, right? Like, you still have to see this play out a little bit. But like, at the same time though, like you said, Champions League money is so important. You are looked at year to year as one of the most talented German squads in the league every single time. And I think growing pains of missing everything in the worst case scenario of like ending 7th or ending 8th or something like that, while these other teams around you are very, very good as well. Like, get it, but also no, right? Like, this team really does have a standard to keep up with. And at their worst moments, they weren't doing this kind of stuff. We'll see how it plays out. I don't think it's over yet, especially. I think that is one good thing about the table being so close together, is that, like, you're still in it, in the thick of it, right? Like, but, and like, I just saw that Leipzig is not really that far ahead of you guys even. But I wouldn't use growing pains as an excuse at the end of the season. What if you do miss Champions League or even Europa League or even European Conference League? Like, you just don't know this season. It's so competitive overall.
And I don't want to throw Etar completely under the bus or anything. Like, I do, because I completely, I appreciate you being in our Discord, and thank you for listening. And I completely,
I just kind of like just flamed him.
No.
I don't mean that, but
I appreciate the comment and him saying that, because like, I see that point of view. I do, and I think what's more disappointing is, one, the expectations of this club are high, right? Like, we all have very high expectations, and yes, there was a lot of change recently in all levels of the club, but it's like we've had to make those changes because of the lack of work done in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Where we hung our hat on like getting second or like almost winning the title and then going all the way to the Champions League final, right? Like I would say the board got to hang their hat on these significant accomplishments that were still kind of failures. Like, I mean, Champions League run, incredible, right? I had no clue we were going to go that far, but the failure of not actually winning the league when it was in our hands and then being like, guys, look how great we did. And then
that's
going off of last year with the Champions League too.
On the players in those two situations, though, like you have the Champions League final. It doesn't all boil down to this one moment, of course, but like Adeyemi did miss a one-on-one with the keeper, and that could have totally changed the whole outcome of that game, given that Dortmund were the better side until late in the second half, really, in that game. And then, of course, the Bundesliga game, you have Haller missing a penalty, us giving away 2 stupid goals early on. So, you can only do so much. As much of the criticisms that we had of Terzic, he did get us not only a Pokal, but an opportunity to get 2 other major trophies for this team that hasn't been seen in over a decade. So,
yeah. And I think I'm not trying to say all because of those, like it's the board's fault, but I do think like we could have been doing better in like building squad or preparing the squad in those senses. Like, yeah, a lot of it is on players too, but I think part of that maybe comes down to the players not having as much competition that they need in the squad because of the lack of squad building. Because the same thing we're saying this year with center backs is like we're saying it last year too. Because last year we also only had
we've been saying it for 3 seasons, Jake.
Three center backs, fullback situation. It's the same.
3 seasons now.
We got a couple more Champions League games coming up after the new year and after the winter break. It's weird that we've already played 6 and we have 2 more and they're a long ways away, which feels weird. But because of that, hopefully we can get some guys back. Looking at the Champions League table, like I don't know. This was such a weird kind of format to even know what was going to happen, but we've remained in the top 8 up until this point. Currently in 9th, I think we're in still a good position to land in those top 8 spots. There's been a lot of big clubs who are probably way lower than a lot of people thought. What's your thoughts, Jake?
Oh, yeah, no, I think this format is so funny just for out of context pictures. Real Madrid is like 2 points away from Stuttgart right now. Like, you guys are exactly tied on, like, goal differential, wins, and all that with Bayern right now. Like, I don't know if I have any hot takes about the format itself, but I do appreciate the hilarity that it is giving us right now.
The board is fuming looking at that, Jake, because, like, the whole point of this new format is to essentially be a Super League, and then Madrid's looking at their table with the same thing. Like, what the fuck are we doing next to them? We're supposed to be locked in already. We're supposed to be automatically there.
When we were playing Dinamo Zagreb, I remember looking at the table then, and like Dinamo Zagreb was above Bayern and Real Madrid and PSG and both the Red Bull clubs. They're way down there, but like,
they're already out. They can't even qualify for anything anymore.
It's wild. But I think looking ahead, I think we are still in a really good position to be able to advance in the top 8. And then 2 more Bundesliga matches before the winter break coming up this weekend. Dortmund home, so it's probably a locked-in guaranteed win, and we're all going to be cruising and real happy, but we're playing Hoffenheim, who've also had a lot of changes at their club too, so they're kind of in an interesting period right off the coaching change. They beat Leipzig. I know they haven't won everything lately. There's been a lot of competition, Pokal and everything, but it is an interesting club, and interesting matchup this weekend, Sunday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. But thoughts going into this match. I guess, Jake, your thoughts on Hoffenheim, their season so far, and all the turnover and changes there, where it's basically Sturm Graz in Heim.
Well, Sturm Graz, I think everybody's going to be in the Bundesliga eventually. I mean, even Kolk signed their right back for $2 million. What? You want to be $2 million and you want to be in the second league?
I saw that.
I think it's just interesting, right? Because, like, they are in the midst even of getting picked apart further with Bischoff probably going to Bayern eventually. And I think when they brought in the Sturm Graz, I think they might have been expecting a little faster results. They still look like really, really awful. They played a game today that they did not look very good in. It's tough. It's tough to kind of gauge this because they did give Leipzig a run that one time. Like, I think they still have a lot of talent, and I don't think it would be good to look over any team with Kramaric in it. But I think that's probably definitely the easiest game you guys got got left theoretically because Wolfsburg is looking like insane right now. I would not want to be one of their last games up until the break. But I think Hoffenheim is a game where you can get some of this momentum back and maybe even give some players like Duranville another shot of like, okay, here's a league game. It's like you're not playing Barcelona, obviously. Like, try to, get them going there so that you can go into Wolfsburg, come out with a win there. I think you have to win that game, even though they're playing really well. And you go into a break with your head held high, as opposed to like getting humbled or whatever against Wolfsburg and being like, man, we've got. I think that's the most important thing to do with the last game of the break, before the break, is like just ending on a good note so that your team can go on their vacations like feeling positive, as opposed to like being nervous about coming back. But
I don't know what to say because, we definitely have to win these two, but I just don't see it happening with the back line. That I have no idea how it's going to look. I feel like if Benzemaini is not playing on the left, he's going to be playing the center as a center half with Chan. I don't know if Rierson looks like he's probably not going to be ready, but we'll probably know more here by tomorrow. I really don't know. I mean, both really, really tough games. Like you mentioned, Jacob, we are at home, which I think is going to be huge, but I'm not feeling great. I'm still hoping we're going to get a win here, and I'll say 2-1, but that's...
against Hoffenheim?
I don't know, man. This back line scares me.
My goodness, bro.
I mean, the fact that we have no center backs.
Kramaric always scores against us.
That's true,
always.
Hoffenheim, bro. Come on.
We've also
No.
we've also lost their we lost our last game against them too back in February, and we were at home.
But this team is not only picked apart, but is continuing to be picked apart. I think if you guys do anything but win this, then I would be like DEFCON 1, like everybody in the club gets fired. There's no way you're like
All right,
this
Ben,
nervous
so we're having you
about
on again next
Hoffenheim.
week then, right, Jake? Okay.
Oh my
Jake,
God.
who plays? I want your take on who plays center back alongside Chan. Is it Pintabaini, or is it Mecha, or is it a kid?
No, wait.
For Hoffenheim, a kid probably, right?
Yeah.
Chan and
some
Mane,
18-year-old.
if he's back. I don't.
But I still don't think that's like cause to be like, oh yeah, we're gonna get whooped by Hoffenheim. If
No, I don't
that
think we're gonna
happens,
get whooped.
dude-
I just
okay.
even though we're at home and our not so perfect record anymore is still looking very solid. I'm just scared as all.
I would be
maybe 2-1 is a little too optimistic because we'll probably concede more than one goal, but maybe like a 3-2 win or something. We barely pull something like that off.
That's when you gotta start sending emails, bro. That's when you gotta call somebody, your ticket rep, even though you don't have one. That would be the alarm bells for me if you guys look bad against Hoffenheim.
I'll recant my original prediction. I'm going to go 3-2 win. But that's also still optimistic.
This is a great opportunity for we don't push this enough, but for the listeners to get involved. You can answer the little question on our Spotify. You can send us a message on socials. You can get on our Discord or leave a comment on the YouTube stream. What does this lineup look like? Like, this is the most. Usually we can predict it because it's just like these are the available guys, but now it's like all three center backs are injured. So obviously Chan's going to be starting. I say obviously, who knows what's going to, I don't know.
Yeah.
Who's our center backs is really what I want to know. I think the rest of it kind of sorts itself, but yeah, who's your center back pairing? I almost want to say, what's your hot take center back pairing? But it's just a take. Everything's hot right now. Let us know in the comments or wherever you're listening or watching, or get it in our Discord to link there. Jake, what are your predictions, even though we have no center backs? Can Kobel play center back? Probably.
Sweeper keeper, although Neuer is kind of, I think, ruined the idea of sweeper keepers for people.
I was going to say Neuer, yeah.
Bro, it's got to be 2-0. No, actually, I'll give Hoffenheim 1 because Kramaric will score. But, like, it's got to be 3-1, man. Bro, don't lose to Hoffenheim. Come on, man. Save that for Wolfsburg. That I can see you guys losing. But this one?
Gumbo will be dropped, Jake.
No, not against Hoffenheim, bro. You're going to just... No, the Dritte Liga, dude. You just got to go Dritte Liga.
That's an automatic relegation.
I didn't give a prediction.
No, not yet.
I'll say 2-1 if we can just keep the ball somehow out of our half. Just let the midfield do all the defending. That's not going to happen. Let that just get it to Garcia and Gittens, and he'll score, and hopefully we can keep him out. I don't know how we're going to keep him out, though, because literally we don't have center backs.
I feel like we'll maybe see, obviously not a center back, but we'll maybe see a little bit more of Adeyemi. He made the squad, but he didn't get any minutes against Barcelona. Maybe we'll see him get 15, 20 here.
All right. I am very intrigued to see this starting 11 when it comes out this Sunday, though. Again, home versus Hoffenheim, Sunday, 11:30 Eastern time. It's going to be fun. Can't wait. And we really appreciate you guys hanging out and listening. Jake, what's going on with 50 Plus Donner, man? What's going on with you? Because we really appreciate having you on. And even more so because you're the optimistic one right now as we predict Hoffenheim.
I mean, I'm just a factual person. Anyway, yeah, we've got, with the shows coming down to it, we're doing a watch along for Leipzig Bayern. I know that's not what the listeners want to hear, but we are doing one for that. We've got our annual award show coming up pretty soon, the Donor slots. We have Bundesliga Spelling Bee, which I think Carver has signed up for that. So
yeah. I'm excited.
We've got a lot of fun stuff. The break is going to be long and arduous, but we'll make our own fun while everyone's on vacation.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't know about the spelling bee thing. That's exciting. I'm hyped for that. And we'll link everything so people can find you. It's been awesome having you on. It shows a little bit off the rails, but also Dortmund's a little bit off the rails, so it's okay. We really appreciate having you. If you want to follow Jake and 50 Plus Donner and the spelling bee and everything, we'll be sharing all of that. Carver, I'm not going to tease it. I'm wearing this thing right now. That's all I'm going to say.
I was just about to ask, where do you tell the people where to get one of thems?
Carver and I have been cooking on some things. This was a test print. And if you're only listening on the podcast, you can go see the video. I'm not giving too much away. This was a test print that was very poorly designed because it has strings that kind of block things. So this is not available anywhere, but Carver and I are working on some things, and hopefully we'll have details on stuff you can wear soon. That's all.
How ominous.
Nothing's official.
And also nothing's going to match
the BVB podcast romper. I'm in for it.
Nothing's going to match the merch behind Jake, actually. I still love that kit more than anything. Your sunset one.
Where can people buy that?
Oh, it's too late. Yeah,
I know, we missed the window for that.
But yeah, it's been good. It's been fun having you on, Jake. We really appreciate it. And we will see you guys later after whatever happens in Hoffenheim.
Bye.
Bye.